We've now recorded our first series of APMG's Implementing Best Practice in Business. I've spoken to leaders, TED Talk hosts, those who work in government, the public and private sectors. In this episode, we're going to look back at some highlights, actionable advice, and round up some of those key moments. Let's dive into the best of 2021. Beginning with the advice from our first ever episode, The Importance of Governance with Mark Thomas. In this snippet, he shares his opinion on what digital transformation actually is.
The whole idea of digital transformation. You can't have a discussion with an executive or a board member today without digital transformation coming up. So I will say this, it's using advanced technology to enhance the customer and user experience of the organization. How you touch your stakeholders and how you touch your users and using advanced technology to do that, which is why now we see things like the cloud, Internet of Things, right? These are becoming huge right now in a world today where a single app by a competitor can put you out of business. That is digital transformation.
Not everything is digital, so how should you change your approach in project management? Our next guest, Antonio Nieto-Rodriguez, author, thought leader, and co-creator of the Strategy Implementation Professional Course and Certification, joined us fresh from the ink drying on his new Harvard-partnered Project Management Handbook. We hear him answer what advice he'll give his younger self, starting out in his career to change his approach in project management.
I see myself now more as a leader, somebody who needs to drive, almost like a mini CEO who I can, drive change, create value, confront people if they're not collaborating on my respect. So I feel much more accountable for not just the deliverables, but for the project. I think that has make a big difference. People look at you like, wow, this person cares. He's not just delivering milestones, but he wants to change your company.
Moving from optimizing your strategy as a project manager to optimizing business cases, next in our podcast series was Joseph Lowe. Joseph works for HM Treasury and is the editor of the Green Book. When asked about the problems in creating business cases and his top tips to overcome them, he shared his wide industry insights on good methodology.
The world is a lot more complicated than we think. And we tend to make assumptions and then act on them. And what usually goes wrong is that people jump in and jump to an end-to-end solution in their mind without taking the problem apart and looking at the different bits of it and building it from the bottom up as you would a wall or something. And they just assume that they know what the answer is and all they have to do is devise an implementation plan. And so they jump in, and then all the problems begin to emerge during the implementation phase, which they hadn't foreseen because they jumped to a conclusion. In other words, they retrofitted their design onto a preformed conclusion and they didn't do proper analysis.
If methodology is the glue of a good business case, a good business relationship manager is the glue of a great team. Join me in listening to Kooner, the global head of IT at Rolls-Royce, tell us why BRM is a key route to becoming a CIO.
CIOs are now becoming more focused on leading the business rather than leading technology. I think there's always more capable people than you to look at the technology side of things. So it's really important for the modern CIO to understand what the business is about, where the business is heading, and having more of the softer skill sets around building relationships and understanding and dealing with the grey. And I think that puts business partners as prime candidates as someone who could potentially do that role successfully.
To be a great BRM, you have to be a great leader, no doubt about it. And our next guest in the show was the incredibly energetic and enthusiastic Eddie Obeng, a guru of leadership. His TED Talk seeped into the lessons he shared with us about change management.
So everyone knows what a butterfly is, okay? And you don't get to a butterfly just by sticking wings on a caterpillar. A typical change project or a typical project is the caterpillar decides to climb from one leaf to another, or the change might be eating lots of leaves and getting really fat. But it's still a caterpillar, it's not a butterfly. So how does it become a butterfly? It has to forget a lot of the things which caterpillars are good at. That's a set of actions and changes. It has to build a whole new set of, I'll call them scaffolding, things to keep it alive whilst the butterfly is emerging. Then it has to build all the things which butterflies need to know, which it won't understand when it starts, because you don't go to a caterpillar for flying lessons. So what you do to be successful as a caterpillar is great, but now it's possible that the world doesn't quite fit. The leaves aren't quite where you want them. So that's what gives you the impetus to try to move to becoming a butterfly.
We then talked to Melanie Franklin, our first powerhouse female practitioner of change management. Melanie has an impressive decade or more specialising in agile change. She will explain how power in numbers is how we remove the biggest barrier to change, which in her opinion is adjusting a whole team to a new way of working.
The more people who understand about how to lead people, including themselves, through change, who understand the psychological background, who understand what those change management activities are, the greater the chance we have of building an environment that is supportive and feels safe. And in that way, we remove one of the biggest barriers to making change happen.
In response to those who think change management is not a real business practice, Melanie definitely has something to say.
So I think there is something about change management is fluffy. Change management is just a bit of communication. I think we have to challenge that head on and say, no, it delivers significant business value. And the longer term business value is that it creates for you within your organization a capacity to take on new ways of working, which match your ambition in the boardroom. And that ambition is your competitive advantage. You can have all the ideas in the world that you like, but if you can't implement them, you will not get the value back. You won't get that return on investment. So this is not fluffy. This is hard-nosed business approach.
Next up was Eddie Borup, a truly cosmopolitan project professional with experience in private industry, public service and NGOs. Listen on to find out what he thinks a systematic issue to project success is.
Project success used to be measured in the triangle, time, cost, scope, or time, cost, quality. And he debunked that. He said, no, that's project management success. Project success is really about the achievement of the goals, the benefits. And having seen firsthand on my travels, projects that have won awards but have never been used, and the reason they won awards is because they were on time and to cost and to the scope, and yet not used. So that can't be right. And so we do. We have a systematic issue at the moment, I believe, in that there is no connectivity unless you do it yourself. Challenge everything.
Next up, listen to our highlight moment from our Senior Programme Manager at Irish Rail, Ricardo Santos' interview, and how he stays competitive against his competition by mobilising the entire team to change through a combination of change management and project management.
There is no such thing as project management and change management. They are deeply intertwined. Whether the project is to deliver change or not, if you need to tick the boxes I just described, you need change inside the change. If you want to stay competitive, you need to be different from your competition. So you need to change the way that either everybody's working or the way that you've been working so far. So how do you do that? How do you mobilize an entire team to a vision? Simon Sinek says that all starts with the why. They all need to understand the why. Companies can develop new procedures, new frameworks, governance, assurance, but if people do not change the mindset, nothing is delivered as planned initially.
We then talked to Sergey Semelis, the CEO of PPP Expertise Eurasia. Sergey discusses how PPPs are not only a way to gain financing, but also a way to develop efficiency.
Financing is abundant, but funding is scarce. And this is one of the things we teach you on the course. That's what the CP book really tells you, the difference between funding and financing. Many nations are primarily drawn into PPPs because you can finance a new hospital now. But ultimately, it's about better projects. If you can harness those efficiencies of the private sector, and you would make, even an authority with lots of money, like the USA, they became probably number one market in the world in PPPs when they realized it's a way to structure the deals where the efficiency of the private sector make the deal better, even if you could find it cheaper.
Our final guest of 2021 is Joe Stanford. Joe leads a team of project professionals working across organisational and regional boundaries. As we continue with our day-to-day challenges of relentless change, Joe reflects on her thoughts about neuroscience and the way our brains are conditioned to return to the familiar.
I did a course on neuroscience for coaching because I wanted to understand what's the barrier, what's the thing that's stopping people from engaging. And that was really revolutionary for me because it's about understanding what's going on in the human mind when they're presented with change. If you think about how you get to work, if you drive to work, if you do it regularly, day in, day out, back and forth, your brain get on autopilot. It will take you there. Some days you'll get there and go, oh, I didn't really think about that on the way, but you got there safely enough. You've built a neural pathway in your brain that is really strong, and therefore your brain can go down that path without any effort or energy from you. When you try and get somebody to do something different and change the way they behave, so suddenly you move to a new office, unless you are concentrating, you'll find yourself going to the old one because that neural pathway in your brain is stronger. And it's the same with changing processes, ways of working, behaviours. You have to put repeated effort in order to build a stronger neural pathway than the previous one you had.
All of these have had a lasting impact on me. They've enlightened my perspective on best practice in business. It's been an honour, a privilege and a pleasure talking to some of the greatest minds in our community. Let us know what you want to hear about next, and we wish you a safe and healthy transition into the new year. Please visit apmg-international.com to find out more about our accredited training and the certifications that support them that are related to the topics discussed in this series. Thank you.